Hello, this is a recording for cisp300, and this is the last question, number 5 out of 5 of the final exam in fall 2018. This is the only question that has records in it. Um, it was one of the last topic that we talked about, but it is an important topic, so I felt it was important to include one question with record types. And it also has subroutines and the usual stuff. But for the most part, this question is um, about the understanding of records. All right, so let's go ahead and work on this one. We need several columns. We need a line number. And in this case, because we know there's a pass by reference, as you can see here, so that means we need to number the columns. So you can number them later or ID them later, but it's probably better to label the columns from the start, so it's just easier to handle that way. So we got line number. You can see that there are no return statements here, so we don't have to leave a lot of space for the line number 1. There is the comments where we keep track of conditions, and in this case we do have some pretty kind of long-ish conditions to track, so we might want to give it more space for comments. And then we have no global variables in this case because x is a local variable, as the name implies here, and then f is a pass by reference parameter, and then I here is once again a local variable, so we don't have any globals here. So that means we can get started right away. So line number 3 has nothing to say, there's nothing because there are no global variables. Okay, so let's scroll down. I may not need the other part of the screen that is currently displaying the algorithm, so I think we are fine here. All right, the first line that is outside of the definition of a subroutine is line 147, and it is invoking main. So in this case, we only need a return line number because nothing in this particular algorithm returns a value. And before we proceed any further, it might be helpful to line the columns. I just said the comments may need more space, so let me move the return line number by erasing a part of it and then writing it maybe up here, and then line the columns again. And return line number doesn't need much space, so we'll make it smaller. And when we return from line 147, we should return to post, so it's just a post here. And then after that, we have local variables in main. X is a fraction. Okay, so we have x, and x has two parts because x is a fraction, so that means it has an n as a member and also has a d as a member. So technically there are two separate columns here. X has two columns as a local variable. And let's see, main doesn't have anything else, so this is all we need. And if we want to, we can also label the columns right now. This is, oops, I have to cancel that. This is column A, column B, column C, column D, column E. All right, so we now go into the main subroutine on line 143, which initializes, oh, forgot about one thing. All local variables are supposed to have the initial values of question marks. Almost forgot about that one, which also means it's going to be important when I grade it. Okay, So on line 143, we initialize n to 54, and on line 144 we initialize d, member d of x to 90. Okay. Oops, wrong place to put it. There we go. All right. Now we get to line 145. On line 145, it invokes S1 as a subroutine, and is passing the local variable x by reference to parameter f of the subroutine. So first thing first, we need a return line number again. So we need a return line number, and when we get back, we can continue on to line 146 of main. So that's easy. And then we have f, which is a parameter that's passed by reference. So this is the one that we have to be careful, because it is a reference to two columns. In this case, it's column D to column E. That's how f is supposed to be set up. But we are not done yet, because we also have a local variable I. I, being a local variable, starts with an unknown value. So let's go ahead and line the columns a little bit more, like so. And now we are ready to execute the first statement inside the subroutine S1, which is on line 131. Oops, I keep forgetting to cancel the ruler tool after using it. So on line 131, we are initializing I to 2. And then on line 131, that's the beginning, then 132 is the beginning of a loop. So we are looking at f dot n being greater than or equal to I, and f dot d being greater than or equal to I. All right, so let's find out what is f dot n. F dot n refers to f first. F itself is of a type of fraction, so it has two components. It has a n component and a d component. But f is not a record by itself. It is a reference of a record, because it refers to columns D and E. Of column D and E, member n is column D, member D is column E. So in this case, we are comparing 54 to I, which is 2. It's greater than or equal to. We're comparing member D, which has a value of 90, to 2. That's also greater than or equal to. So we can say the result of this is true. Then we go to line 133, where we have an even longer conditional statement to evaluate. So we have f dot n, which is 54. And I'm going to use percent to represent mod, so I can, I don't have to write as much. This is also the C notation for the mod operator, so it's pretty handy to learn it anyway. All right, so f dot n mod I is 54 mod 2, and it is in fact 0, because the remainder of 54 divided by 2 is 0. And then the other one is f dot d, which is 90 mod 2. It is also 0, because 90 divided by 2 has a remainder of 0 as well. So the conjunction itself is also true. So now we have the then statement should execute in this case. So we go to line 133. Oops, line 134, excuse me, which computes f dot n divided by I, and then we store that back into f dot n. So once again, f refers to columns D and E. Of the two columns, member n is column D, which has a value of 54. 54 divided by 2 is 27, And then we store the 27, according to the algorithm, back to member N of the record that F is referring to. Member N of the record that F is referring to is column D. So it is now updated to 27. Line 135 is going to perform the same operation to D. So once again, we are referring to f.d. F is a reference to a record, to a fraction record. And of the fraction record, member D is in column E. So 90 is what we retrieve to be divided by 2. And 90 divided by 2 is 45. And then we store the 45 back into the same location. And that's it. Okay, so we don't do a single thing about I when we can perform the division. Then we get back to line 133. So we ask, 132. I take it back. We go back to line 132, which is the beginning of the loop here. And we say f dot n, which is currently 27, is greater than or equal to I, which is 2. And then f dot d, which has a value of 45, is also greater than or equal to 2. So that is true. We get to line 33. So this time when we get to line 33, f dot n, which has a value of 27, mod 2, because I has a value of 2, does not equal to 0. So this equality is false. We don't bother to evaluate the second condition because of short circuit evaluation. So this condition is not even evaluated as a result. But we can decide right away that we need to go to the else branch, which is on line 137. And that does increase I by 1. So I goes from 2 to 3. Then we get out of the conditional statement. There's nothing else in the loop. So we go back to the beginning of the loop on line 132. F dot n is 27. It is greater than or equal to 3. That is true. F dot d is 45. It is greater than or equal to 3. That is true as well. So the conjunction is true. We get to line 133. F dot n is 27. Mod 3 does equal to 0 because 27 is divisible by 3. And f dot d is 45. 45 mod 3 is also 0 because 45 is also divisible by 3. So the conjunction itself is true. And now we need to scroll down a little bit. There we go. I may not have enough space because I didn't leave enough space for the comments. So we get to the then statement, which is on line 134. We update f dot n by f dot n divided by I. I is 3 now, so 27 divided by 3 is 9. And then 40, so that's line 134. On line 135, 45 is divided by 3, and the result is 15. Okay, and then we get back to line 132. F dot n is greater than or equal to I. It's true because 9 is greater than or equal to 3. F dot d is greater than or equal to I. It's also true because f dot d is 15. 15 is greater than or equal to 3. So the conjunction is true again. On line 133, we evaluate another condition. F dot n mod I is 9 mod 3. 9 is obviously divisible by 3, so the remainder is a 0. So this part is true. The second part is f dot d, which has a value of 15 mod 3 is also a 0 because 15 is also divisible by 3. So the conjunction gives us true. We move on. We move on to line 134, and on that line we divide 9 by 3 again. So this 9 is now 3. On the next line, 135, 15 is divided by 3, so it is now 5. And we are out of space. Okay, let me think about what to do with this. I can just add a page. Okay. We first use the ruler first. Okay, so we'll use the rulers. And then we'll see whether I can copy and paste into a new page. Let's see. So I'm going to zoom out. Okay. And then use its selection tool. Select that much. Copy. New page after. And then paste. Well, that works out okay, I guess. It's missing all the horizontal lines because those are coming from the PDF itself. So, so what I need to do is just to be a little bit more careful when I write, so everything is still lined up horizontally. All right, zoom back in. Oops. There we go. I need to resize it back to where it was. There. Okay, there we go. All right. So, sorry for the distraction. And after line 135, we get back to line 132. Just need to make sure that I'm using the right tool here. So we get back to line 132. F dot n is now 3. 3 is greater than or equal to 3 is true. F dot d is 5. 5 is greater than or equal to 3 is also true. So the conjunction is true. Then we move on to line 133. F dot n mod 3 equals to 0. That is true. However, F dot d, which is 5 mod 3 equals to 0 is false, because when you divide 5 by 3, there's a remainder of 2. So the entire conjunction is false. That will bring us to the else branch, which is on line 137, which increases I by 1. So I is increased to 4. I know 4 is not a prime number, but it's okay because we took care of all the 2's already. So now we get back to line 132, and then we ask again, f dot n is greater than or equal to I is false, because f dot I is 3. 3 is greater than or equal to 4 is false. So we short circuit. We do not evaluate f dot d is greater than or equal to I because of short circuited evaluation. So that will take us out of the loop on line 132 right here. And move on here. I don't think we need a whole lot more space from here on. So we'll just get this much. Okay. All right, so getting out of the loop means we will end up on line 140. Line 140 is n-defined sub, so we got two things to do. First, we need to look up and find out where are we going back to. And according to this, we're going back to line 146. So we write down 146 here. And then the second thing we need to do is to deallocate all the columns that were used. There are three columns here: return line number, F, and I. So the last three columns are deallocated here. So just strike out the three columns. Now we are on line 146. Line 146 is also an n-defined sub, so we're going to do exactly the same thing. We look up the return line number, which tells us to go back to post. Okay. So we say, oops, we write a post here. And then we have no use of the columns anymore. So let's go ahead and count how many columns we need to deallocate. We need to deallocate the return line number, which is column C, X, which takes up two columns, so C, D, and E are now deallocated. So there are three columns to deallocate in this case. 1, 2, and 3. Oops, wrong place to cross. There we go. 146 is the one that crosses out those columns right there. No, right there. Okay. And now we continue execution at post, which means we're done. So that's the complete trace of this particular algorithm. So there are a few things that I'll be looking for, kind of individual things. The first thing I'll be looking for is going to be, how X is allocated. X has to be allocated on a dynamic basis, which means, they don't get allocated until the subroutine is invoked. So that means, on line 147, I'm going to look at the stack, excuse me, not the stack, I'm looking at the spreadsheet and see whether it looks like this. I will pay particular attention to this portion here. To make sure that X takes up two columns and it has a member N and a member D. And then lines 143 and 144, those are also important because I want to look at whether the N member and the D member get updated individually on the line where they need to be updated. On line 145, the important part is whether I can see that F is passed by reference. When F is passed by reference, it should take up only one column, and it should read reference to columns D to E, or however you want to name the columns. As long as the columns are properly identified in the reference, it's fine. Minor points, to this question mark, okay, because every local variable starts with an unknown value. And then the rest, when we get to the subroutine S1, is the logic. So we do have a while loop and a conditional statement in the while loop. So that logic is worth some points. Particularly, I'll be paying attention to the conditions. Okay, so the conditions, I'm talking about the condition of the while loop, as well as the condition of the conditional statement. Knowing when to do short-circuit evaluation, such as this one here, is also worth points. There's one more case where there's a short-circuited evaluation, which is here. So those are worth points as well. The way you update the values, okay, on line 134 and line 135, the fact that you're not updating the column for parameter F, but instead you're updating column D and column E, that's important. Okay. The way you update I is kind of important, but that's covered by the logic of the code. So we have to understand when we need to change I basically when not both of the numerator and denominators can be divided by I, then we have to change I up to the next available number. Okay. And then the allocation at the end of the subroutine is kind of important, but not nearly as important as the other things that we talked about. So these I look for these the allocation indicators. That's about it. That's how I'm going to grade question number 5 of the final exam.